Someone might be calling, hey, party ke liye aa jao, अरे इधर चलते हैं, उधर चल, let's go trip. I'm like, no, I am staying at home, curled up in my bed, reading a book. Do whatever. I'm switching off my phone for the next 3 hours. Do not disturb.
Hello and welcome to Multiverse of Mind presented by Minded Hands, a podcast where we take you on a journey towards different universes of human mind. As a mind enables us to be aware of the world and our experiences, think, feel, and behave, I, Hannah Fernandez, and my co-host Akash Jadhav, we are a group of counseling psychologists working towards normalizing talking about mental health.
In our first season, Beyond Professions, we talk about the professions and go beyond the stigmas attached to it. We also talk about the thought process that goes beyond the social image of the profession. Today, we are going to talk about journalism. They say journalism is the first draft of history. To talk about the same, we would like to invite one of such journalists. Let's welcome Shaayaan Shaikh, who is a journalist by profession, but his profession is just one of the many things that he has mastered. He's a guitarist, a singer, and a journalist, and the list goes on. So let's welcome Shaayaan Shaikh today.
So we would just want to know, because you have got like a really interesting profession and we want to explore that. So we want to know how and when did you get passionate about journalism?
Well, in my case, I would think it was quite a lot of trial and error, actually, that finally made me realize that this is where my calling is. I'm someone who initially wanted to pursue a career in engineering, and that's what I also did. Turned out 2 years later, that was not really my cup of tea. Then came along the point where I had to decide. I had varied interests. I've always had my eggs in multiple baskets, and Akash would know that. I want to do this, I want to do that, where I feel that 24 hours in a day is too little a time. But one quality that has been innate to my personality, I would say, is that of speaking or articulating my words well. The realization came quite late in my life. And once it did, it just fit together like the missing piece of the puzzle. And I realized that this is a strength. This is my forte. This is what I'm good at naturally. A skill that I probably honed up over the years, over various platforms and opportunities. As in college, Akash would recall, the stage was my second home. Anchoring an event or speaking, addressing, just being on stage always felt like being home. Through other platforms besides that, through Toastmasters, another public speaking forum where I further strengthened my skills and realized that, okay, this is a place or a platform where I can sharpen my rough edges further. And that did happen. And eventually I realized that, all right, it's time for me to take the plunge, get into a career and a profession where I will play to my strengths and work on them. So it's a long and arduous journey, but I'm glad I had the fortune and the courage and the support to be doing what I'm doing.
That's great. Like getting to do what you want to do is the best achievement you can get.
And even like getting that support and from your peers, from your parents is really necessary for that. Yeah. And I guess Shan has been with hosting TEDx too, and has gone through a lot of things where he hosted a lot of events. Like even in college, the go-to host was Shan. So that was amazing.
Nice.
Yeah. So like you needed support, and I guess that was one thing that drove you towards this. So I would like to ask, what is the biggest supporter or who is the biggest supporter, or let's say a mentor or a model or a role model that you had in your course of life or your course of career?
Hands down, my family. My mom, my dad. I mean, whenever where I've been at crossroads, where I've been in a dilemma about what I want to do with my life, they have always been my foundation. They always told me, listen, Shaayaan, you have the freedom to do whatever you want, right? And they had that much trust in me, they had that much faith in me to let me do what I wanted to do. And I am immensely blessed, fortunate, lucky, whatever you want to term it, for that, where I have parents who are so progressive and liberal that they allowed their only son to do whatever he wanted to do. So, and that support persists even today. Tomorrow, I might choose to do something else. 5 years down the line, I might be in a different profession altogether. But my parents give me the luxury of taking that decision because they have enough faith and trust in me that whatever decision I take, I would have given it enough thought before even considering it.
That's true.
With engineering, with music, with journalism, there's always been a lot of thought that has gone behind these decisions. It's not been spontaneous. ऐसे कर लो. So my support, my foundation, my parents, they understand that and they trust me with my decisions. And they did, even when I told them that, okay, I wish to pursue a career in the field of journalism. They had their apprehensions, they had their, being parents, come on, how can they not, right? But still, they did let me do what I wanted to do. So, and the support is the reason why I am where I am today.
That's great, well said.
Yeah, that's really, parents are like, the pillar on which we, need that support. And it's very important to get that support. And having that support is really important.
Absolutely. And not just parents, here to add on, I would say there's this phrase which people often tend to use, self-made man or self-made woman or a self-made person. I have a major issue with the term. I find that to be an insanely obnoxious statement. Fair enough, you might have gone through some tough times. You might have really worked hard on yourself or your career to get where you are, but you are never self-made. There's always someone looking after you. You might not see them. You might not realize that you have a support. You have support of someone behind you, a family, friends, well-wishers, co-workers, colleagues, anyone, yeah? Without support, you cannot. We are human beings. We are social beings. Getting anywhere in the world without the support of our society is next to impossible.
Yeah.
No one is self-made. Everyone has, of course, worked hard on themselves, but you always need a solid foundation if you want to achieve something big.
That's true. That's well said. I can't agree more. That is one of the things that you need every time.
Yeah. So yeah, knowing from your profession, being a journalist, you have an uptight schedule that goes on. So we want to know how you manage your professional and personal life.
Okay, now we're moving on to the tough questions. Huh? It's like sitting on a seesaw. That's how it is. Put very simply. Professional, personal life. And you're right there walking the plank. One step here, one step there, trying to balance out. घर भी चलाना है, काम भी चलाना है, पापी पेट को भी खिलाना है, right? Everything has to be right there, the balance. And there's never going to be a perfect balance. Let's put it that way. But my goal is to strive for it. It's like perfection. You can't achieve it. You aim for excellence.
Yeah.
You aim for at least getting there. So doing that has been the challenge from day one. As Hannah, you said, it is a field, journalism, and to be more specific, television journalism or broadcast journalism, the field that I am in right now. It drains you out. It is not for the faint heart, frankly. I have seen people who have come to work on day one, and by the end of the day, their papers are right there. They have put in their papers on the very same day. And I'm not just talking about one such incident. I have seen, at least witnessed 4 such cases where people have quit within hours, within maybe days of getting a feel of the newsroom, understanding and grasping the amount of pressure and the tension that you are expected to work under.
Yeah.
You have long working hours. You have days where you probably have to spend the night in the newsroom. And it's happened. I've lost count how many times it's happened. A big day, like an election or some unfortunate incident like the Beirut blast, or even something which is a little more planned, like the UN General Assembly, something that we were covering last week. You have to put in extra hours. That is a given.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have fixed work timings down 9 to 5 when the rest of the day is off. You have the luxury to do anything and everything you want. No, news does not stop for anyone. Developments keep on happening. The world keeps on moving. It's an unusual life where my friends who are not in the profession, I look at them and there's a part of me that is envious.
Yeah.
Because they have a fixed routine. They know they'll be working for 5 days a week, and they know that come Saturday, Sunday, they take the day off, take the weekend off, go on a trip somewhere. In people from my field, in my case, and those of my work colleagues, we don't know. We really don't know. We don't have fixed work days. We don't have fixed off days. We don't have fixed work timings either. So every day is about balancing your time, professional time versus personal time. You just figure it out with time, you know?
Yeah.
And you have to have the capacity to be very flexible. Tomorrow, you might be called into work at 5 a.m. in the morning. The day after, you might be called into work at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And I'm not just quoting that, that happens with everyone in the field. Doesn't matter how senior, how experienced you are. If work calls, you have to be there. You better be there. You're a journalist. You are responsible for getting out information to the people, right? That is the whole point of journalism. And if that takes a break, everything else just cascades, and the repercussions are felt through and through. So balance is something that I constantly strive for. I understand, I've kind of realized with time the importance or how essential my personal time is to me. I value it immensely, Akash and Hannah. There are days when I want to spend in my own house by myself. I get that time after so much of effort, after having slogged my ass off, and I don't want to compromise on it. Someone might be calling, hey, party ke liye aa jao, are idhar chalte hain, udhar chale. I'm like, no, I am staying at home, curled up in my bed, reading a book. Do whatever. I'm switching off my phone for the next 3 hours. Do not disturb. That is essential, not just in this field, but every other field, right? You need some time to recharge mentally, focus on your mental health. not just your physical health. You go to the gym 5 days a week, fair enough. But what are you doing for this? You can't constantly keep this worked up. You can't constantly have deadlines and pressure and whatnot piling up here. The brain is an incredible organ. It can handle a lot, but it also has a breaking point.
Yes.
And I have had that breaking point. A lot of my colleagues have witnessed that breaking point firsthand or through someone else. And so once that happens, you realize, oh, I need to prioritize my life. I need to prioritize my personal time, me time, or focus on my mental health and mental well-being. भाई पैसा आता जाता रहेगा यार, जॉब आती जाती रहेगी, क्या क्या उखाड़ लेंगे, ठीक है. I worked for 22 hours today, fine. My boss might pat me on the back, my colleagues will praise me, wonderful, wonderful. But then I come home and I collapse because my body can't take it, my mind can't take it. What's the point of that, right?
Totally. And so your mind is totally on that, and I guess you need to be present in your and mentally present in your profession. And if you are not recharged at certain point, I don't think you can get to and give your 100% to whatever field that you are in. And I guess that is pretty important for your work life. And obviously I like the way that you stay in and just maybe not go for a party one day and stay in and just read a book.
There are days where I don't even read a book. I just lay in bed, do nothing. And I'm proud to say that I have the luxury of doing that. And I love doing it on certain days. Why not?
That's that. People do wish for such a life, but people don't even know how to. I mean, they can take a break for a day, right? But they still don't. Like, they just dream of it. That's it. And that's the issue right now. And yeah, so like, let's say people have a lot of misunderstandings, and one of the misunderstandings that they have with journalism is these guys are biased on something or something and such. So there are a lot of misunderstandings in your whole profession. What do you think the one of the biggest misunderstanding is about the whole profession?
Well, people often misunderstand the profession to be way more glamorous than it actually is. There are times when I introduce myself to people or am introduced as, oh, he's a journalist. And people are like, oh, wow, आप टीवी पे आते हो, अरे. In the field, it's no big deal, really. It's no big deal. If you have a certain set of basic skills, you will get there. That's it. But for people outside of the field, they always are so wide-eyed and gushing. Like, oh, tell us, how's it on air? कैसा होता है? वो कैसे पढ़ते हो आप breaking news कैसे करते हो? कैसे बात कर लेते हो? Like, okay, bro, chill. इतना कुछ glamorous नहीं है. What you see is part of the whole production process. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes as well. What the newsreader or the anchor is reading out, what is happening on a certain show during a debate or a discussion. And I speak for news channels globally. Okay, the quintessential definition of a good news channel. I would not want to take names here. But not just Indian media, because honestly, Indian media is not a standard to be held up to. All right, you and I both know the reality. But there's so much that goes on behind the scenes, which people generally don't. They tend to overlook.
Yeah.
The amount of work that producers put in, the amount of work that our reporters put in, the amount of work that editors, researchers, video editors put in. Everything comes together to put out that final output that you see on TV. I might be a face for a certain news TV channel or a certain show, but there's so much happening behind that.
Yeah.
News anchors, typically, they don't just come on air and read what is on the teleprompter. They need to know their stuff in and out. They have many a times they write what they're reading. So what you see us reading on air or talking about or speaking, that's something that we have researched on. That's something we have a certain authority to speak about. It's not just, parrot coming on air and pa 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 pa. There are exceptions, of course. There are a lot of exceptions. Uh, I would say yes. One of the biggest misconceptions here is the glamour quotient. People think it to be way more glamorous than it actually is. Yeah,
It's interesting.
And that's what we want, our audience to know, that there is a lot behind the glamorous look of being a journalist.
Yes. Any undergrad student or school student, any youngster, when they speak to me, they're always, I also want to become a news anchor. I ask them, why? TV pe aana hai. That shouldn't be your goal. Just getting your face on a certain TV news channel should not be the aim of why you want to pursue journalism. You will not get far. You might even get what you want, but you will not stay in the field if that is what you intend to do. There's so much that you need to be prepared for. Discipline ho, ethics ho, hard work ho, everything has to be there. And finally, okay, fine, you also are the face of a certain news bulletin. That should be secondary. Whenever someone comes up to me and they're all wide-eyed, oh, acha, I also want to do that. Mujhe bhi TV pe aana hai. I also want to be an anchor. I'm like, beta, chalo baat karte hain. Yeah, at least those who I think have the mental capacity to understand, I would like to give them a reality check.
Yeah.
Instead of them coming into the field and realizing that, arey yaar, main to chutiya ban gaya. Instead of that, what experience I have gone through, things that I have learned from being in the profession, I would love to share that with anyone who wants to actually know what the reality is.
That's very important. That's very important. So you might be coming across a lot of negative stories. So we want to know, how do you make up your mind, to address them?
Negative stories. Could you be a little more specific about what sort of story?
A bit more disturbing, for you personally. So certain cases could be disturbing for you personally when you come across it. Mm-hmm. Then you have to, if you're going to address that news, you have to make up your mind. You have to get yourself together and present it. So we want to know, how do you deal with it?
We try to deal with any input that comes in with logic, rationality, and emotion. It's a mix of these three. And it's very crucial to have them in the right balance. Because you can be rational and logical, but you can be completely emotionally insensitive about the kind of content that you want to show on your platform, right? You need to take that emotion and that sentiment into consideration. You don't want to show something which might disturb your viewer. At the end of the day, people want to get some sort of information if they're watching your platform, maybe on the internet or on the TV. Making that right judgment between what can be shared, what is essential, what needs to be shared, versus what is maybe crossing the line a little too much. Perhaps in the case of a crime story, there are many times where we get gruesome footage, right? It's absolutely horrifying, where we ourselves, people in the newsroom, and trust me, we have seen a lot. Every other day, we have so much coming in, disturbing, downright disgusting footage from all across the world. We need to be in the right mental state where we ourselves are not disturbed by watching it ourselves, right? And then decide ki theek hai, hum isko kaise chalayenge? Do we play it? Do we not run it? If there's a clip that has to be edited, we'll edit it out, run it through a couple of other people in the newsroom, get their opinions, and then be like, okay, is this safe? Is this safe? Is this safe? So ethical news channels, I'm being very specific, ethical, all right, truly ethical news channels, they're a rarity. But that's the point of journalism. You want to put out information, give out as much information as you can to your viewers, to your consumers, while making sure you don't put them down or run unnecessarily negative stories.
That's true.
Yeah. That's a judgment that we have to make every day, day in, day out. There's only the intensity changes. Ki, acha, how bad will this story look on air? How good will this story look on air? I work in a medium which is very visual.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't watch TV or you can't watch the videos on YouTube with your eyes closed. You need to grab the attention of the viewer and make sure that they watch your content. Unlike a newspaper, तुम newspaper में कुछ भी लिख सकते हो. You can write about anything. You don't need to have videos or photos for a newspaper article.
Yeah.
But for a medium such as broadcast or television journalism, everything is visual. लोग टीवी क्यों लगाते हैं? उनको कुछ तो मसालेदार देखना है. They want to watch something interesting, right?
Yeah.
So we have kind of adapted to functioning that way, where even today, in my everyday life also, that has become part of me. I look at things very visually. Is this appealing to me? If I'm going to buy a shirt, I always think of it. Is this appealing to me? Do I like it? Is it looking visually attractive? Is it looking like something that I could pull off? Right? And that kind of has got into every part of my life because of the profession that I am in. I have started looking at things with a very visual appeal.
Yeah, so I guess that is pretty necessary for you, because obviously you are on television, on national television, where you have to look attractive. It is not like, okay, it is again the game of selling, right? You need to sell yourself as a person who people would believe. And I guess we as psychologists even have the similar kind of thing where people judge us by our looks, and that is pretty important to like have have good visuals, have good offices that would suit the ambience of what you're doing, and that is pretty necessary for you. And we do connect with that whole thing. We are getting a lot of insights from Shaayaan, but sadly we are running out of time. So we'll continue the talks in the next video.